Welcome to My Entrepreneurial Journey with Yaritza Báez, the podcast for women over 40 building and growing their coaching or service-based business. Here we talk about the real ups and downs of entrepreneurship, sharing strategies, lessons learned, and stories that inspire you to stay in the game and create a business on your own terms. This is season 2, and I'm so excited to kick off with an inspiring conversation with Raquel Furman, where we dive into her journey, challenges, and the breakthroughs that shape her business. So let's get started. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. Today's guest is the fabulous Raquel Furman. Raquel's journey blends professional expertise with creativity. After years in marketing agencies with major brands, she now helps small businesses craft authentic brands that resonate. Her gift for visuals and storytelling has been there since childhood, and today she brings that same thoughtful approach to helping entrepreneurs like us create content that fits real life. In our conversation, we'll talk about her leap from corporate to entrepreneurship, her brand building philosophy, and how you can authentically show up for your business. So grab your favorite cup of tea or coffee and let's welcome Raquel. How are you, Raquel? It's an honor to
I'm
have you on my
great.
podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
So you have been in marketing for years.
hmm
What was the turning point that made you want to build your own brand and go solo?
Well, as you said, I was in it for a long time. I started first in photography, and while I was working in photography, I sort of naturally took on some marketing roles because I worked as a studio manager, for a photographer. It was all during the big internet boom. And so I just naturally was a part of that whole world. So I kind of went back and forth between photography and marketing for a long time. And when you're building your career, and especially for myself living in big cities in San Francisco and New York, I had to have a lot of different jobs because I was in my 20s, was trying to figure out what I was doing, waiting tables, trying to be a freelance photographer and marketer. So I spent a long time kind of doing all the different types of jobs, knowing that at some point I wanted to have my own business or be totally freelance. I didn't want to have the supplemental jobs. I didn't necessarily want to work for an agency or corporate because I did those too. So it really wasn't a straight line. I kind of went in and out of it because I also worked in healthcare marketing. So I worked for a huge corporation for several
Mhm.
years, and did more passionate creative projects on the side for a long time. And then I would get these strong feelings of I'm going out on my own. So I would leave a full-time role, I'd go out on freelance, and realize that I did not totally have a plan. And so I would get as far as I could, and then sometimes end up taking on another full-time role. And I sort of did this throughout like my 20s and like into my 30s, and where I would have a full-time role, and then I would just work freelance, and then I would maybe go back into an agency role. So it's a kind of like it wasn't just one moment, but the most recent where I really said, okay, I'm really just doing this now and not having it be a side hustle, was about 5 years ago. 2020, we had the
Yes.
pandemic. I was working in an agency, and in a web marketing agency, we did websites and inbound marketing, and every single piece of content and everything that comes with that, and all the strategies. So that was really great. But in 2020, everything just went berserk all around the world, of course. And a lot of businesses who weren't online all of a sudden wanted to be online. And so that meant, yes, we had a lot of business, but it also really took me to burnout very quickly because I was, the whole world was like, "Oh, great. Well, we'll just do everything on Zoom." I'm like, I'm already on Zoom all the time. Now I'm just on Zoom twice as much, having these very long days and
Yeah.
everything. So, I stayed there for a while, but then during that year, I was like, this isn't how I want to feel every day. This isn't the work that I want to be doing. And I had continued to have my side hustle throughout all of these different iterations of going in and out of different jobs. And so I already thought, you know what, I've got some clients. I'm just gonna go with it. I'm just gonna go back all in. And so now I have not looked back, and now I've been able to build my business and just totally have it for myself. And it's wonderful. As you know, when you get into that entrepreneurial journey and you hit a stride, it's like, okay, I got there.
Yes, and there is one very interesting thing that you said, and is entrepreneurship is not a straight line.
Hmm.
Like a lot of people think like, okay, I'll start my job and everything is gonna be honky dory, and straight line, and that
Uh,
is the least that you are
hmm.
going to experience. And so I think in a way, um, the fact that you went, corporate and then you went freelance and you did that back and forth for some time is part of the foundation that you were building. And maybe
Hmm.
you were may not be aware of it at the time, but you build a resilience that you need in order to be an entrepreneur. Because
Absolutely.
no matter what, it's like you say, is it's not a straight line, and you're gonna have your highs and your downs. And having that, you know uh, that experience of, well, I decided to go back to be a freelance, and then I'm gonna go back to be, and have a steady job, corporate type of job. And
Hmm.
but that was, to me, that's like you were building
Hmm.
your preparing you
Yeah.
for when you took that leap of faith to
Hmm.
say, okay, no more of this. Now I'm
Hmm.
ready for taking the leap of faith and not going back to having a
Yeah.
job.
And I think
So,
each time that was happening, um,
mhm.
I, at the time, I remember feeling like I was failing, where now in hindsight, I can see I was learning. I was
Yes.
learning along the way, and it would always feel like, oh my gosh, do I really want to go back and get another job? But I mean, all the roles that I took on, I was also excited about those, and I had reasons for doing that, but I always felt a little bit like I was failing as an entrepreneur. But what happened was that every time I would then go back on my own, and like I said, I always continued having it as a side hustle. I didn't ever stop doing those things. I just kind of went back
Hmm.
and forth of being on my own. And over time, I remember thinking, like, okay, this is what I'm going to do differently this time. I think I'm going to be able to set myself up for success a little bit differently by, doing, different things. And some of it was just, um, some of it was like not really early on. I didn't really understand exactly how much money I really needed to make to have it just be a business. And so I mean, and this is going back to like when I was in my 20s. I'm in my 40s now. So when I was in my 20s, it was more just like I was just winging it completely, and I didn't have a plan really in place for anything. And so then I learned that, and the next time I was like, okay, I'm going to have a financial plan this time. How about that? That's a smart thing to do. So yeah, it's not a straight line, and that's not always easy. But I do think it's important for people to also realize that up and down is not failure. It's just part of the learning, and the learning curve is less of a curve and more of a squiggle.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Starting your business in your 40s and 50s, you actually benefit from all of that you were saying, those experiences, because even though you always kept your side business, but you went back, and every time you go and work like that, you gain so much from it,
Hmm.
and it serves you as a business lesson, life lesson that then you can apply at your business later on in life, because
Hmm.
it's nothing is straight, and so everything that you did, it built up for now, for what you're doing now, and just you decided, okay, I'm gonna have this business plan, no more
Yeah.
winging, and and all of that. So yes, that is important to people to understand, because a lot go in thinking that it's just going to be like a job, and entrepreneurship is absolutely nothing like a job.
Oh my
Nothing,
gosh,
because
nothing like a job. It's like you give yourself the job and then you realize you have actually have several jobs and you're also the boss and the motivator and the everything in the beginning. Yeah.
yeah,
It's a whole different
you,
thing, but
you
it's awesome.
yeah, you have all the hats, you wear all the hats,
Yes.
which then, yeah, so which lead me to the next question, and is what skills or mindsets carry over from your corporate into entrepreneurship, and what felt totally new to you once you make
Mm.
that complete change.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think probably one of the biggest things that came from every job, and also just from the journey of freelancing and entrepreneurship, is that one of the most important things in any business, especially when you're working with clients, is really good communication skills, because it is this the communications, it's important, first of all, like for the business and for your messaging and all of those kinds of things, like that part of communications and business. But it's also really, it can be a barrier, or it can facilitate a lot of great things. Like when there is any kind of friction going on in business, or with a group of people, it usually comes down to something just needs to be clarified in the communication. It is often a communication thing. So if you so that was, and that's because I worked also, like I said, for this large healthcare corporation where there was a lot of channels to go through all the time. And so there was a lot of opportunities for conversations and threads and messages and things to get lost and buried. And so then things wouldn't be happening and you'd get kind of frustrated. And it was like, you know what? I bet something is just clogged in the communication network somewhere. Let me just go directly to the person who I need to talk to and ask this question, for example. And it was like, oh, yes, communication, just always being willing to communicate and sort of have the expanse around at whatever could be going on in communication systems. That was like definitely something that I took from all of those roles. And then also just, the experience of a lot of trial and error around different marketing campaigns. I mean, having worked with companies with ad budgets, when I was in one of my roles, I was responsible for a $350,000 budget for marketing and advertising for a particular segment. And so that's enough of a budget to really learn a lot, because you're doing enough that you see real results and you see some real data and see real information about the things that work and don't. And so for a lot of people, I mean, and I don't have it, that's that sort of budget is like not it's not the average person or entrepreneur's budget. Like I said, this was a huge company. And so that was definitely a huge advantage that I got to learn at that scale with a lot of
Mhm.
advertising campaigns and things like that. So then I can apply that to much smaller campaigns, and it really helped me when I'm like, okay, this is way leaner. What can I do for, $10 a day? What do I need to do to make that really effective? And so that was a little easier. And then as far as
So,
like,
mhm.
oh,
No,
say,
go
like
ahead.
what was new? What was new? Gosh, so much. So many surprises along the way that I could never have dreamed of. Everything from things that you do for the first time, like going live on Instagram and having to, figure out the tech, or like You know,
Yes.
having a webinar, a live webinar, and having the sound not work and not having somebody there help me, and having all of these people live on the class messaging me, you know, those moments, as an introvert, and you know, who has like spent years practicing getting comfortable with my visibility, and like, you know, getting over perfectionism and making mistakes in public, like there was a big learning curve on that stuff. So yeah, the things I hadn't practiced was like making mistakes publicly, and I've now made plenty of them, and I it's totally fine because they're just like normal part of the process. It's like, you know, you realize people don't really get mad about that. I mean, sure, of course, you want there to be a connection when you're on a live class or something, but I think that in my mind, I had imagined that this would be like a terrible thing and nobody was ever going to want to, you know, talk to me or come to one of my classes. No, they were just like, oh, I can't hear, you know, and then they fixed it and it was fine. And our lives moved on and we had the class and it didn't matter. And I was like, okay. So there were a lot of those sort of live learning moments along the way.
I, it's funny that you say that. I mean, because for me, it's also been an introvert. I experienced the same. It's like you made a mistake, and it's like to me, it was like the end of the world. How can that possibly happen to me? And I will take it so hard on me,
Mm. Mhm.
and so all that the result of all of that, all it did was make me struggle, but also stress me a hell of a
Mm.
lot more because
Mhm.
I couldn't just let it go. How can that be me? And then, but then as I kept seeing other people and having problems with their internet connection, or
Mhm.
like you say, the microphone or something not working out, or maybe I don't know, the PowerPoint that you were using, something there
Yeah.
was a misspell, or was missing one. And then you see other people doing that, and they just go about, and I'm
Mhm.
thinking, well, why can't I just be like that? Because we're not perfect.
Mhm.
We strive to be our best
Yes.
within our own capacities, but we also have to understand and accept that those things do happen. And so all you can be is resilient enough to, like, do so, get it on working, make somehow make it work,
Mhm.
even if you're
Yeah.
missing something in there, and just move on. But it takes time to get used to that, and it only happens as the more you do it, the better you get,
Mhm.
to get used to that, and also the better you get at managing all the things that could go wrong,
Yeah, because
because
things
only
do go
experience.
wrong. Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
can't avoid it. At some point, things happen, technology fails, you forget you know, what you were going to say next or whatever, and then you realize that that is fine. I mean, I think one of the things that you know, I always say for myself, but also for other introverts who are struggling with kind of getting over the initial, you know, visibility and feeling nervous about making mistakes in public or things like that, or doing something live and having it not go well, is I always say, like, to get through that, to get to the other side, you kind of just have to go through the discomfort. So you just have to be willing to get uncomfortable, and then you're going to see on the other side that you did it, you survived, it was fine, and and things just carry on. It's not really that big of a deal. It feels like it because you want to do well and you want to present everything well. And I think I'm starting to think that introverts also maybe are often also perfectionists, and that's probably part of the reason that we're
I think so. I
introverts.
have, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I have to agree with you on that one. We're very good listeners and all of that, but we kind of like tend to be perfectionists.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
have
it's
to
like,
agree.
let me
Yeah.
just stay in my little bubble and I'm going to try to get all of
Yeah.
this perfect before I share it. Well, I mean, I stopped
Mm-hmm.
doing that because once you have the awareness that, like, you're not going to get very far with that. I mean, we talked about this before. You get to a certain point where
Mm-hmm.
you're like, have to just make the decision to go for it. Otherwise, this isn't going to get where I want it to go. So the
Yeah,
willingness to be
yeah,
uncomfortable, yeah.
absolutely. So we have talked about all the things, you know, the fears and that. But what do you think of all the fears that we all have when we start a business and become entrepreneurs? Which one will you say is been your like the biggest one, like the most compelling one, the fears that you will have? Like, which one will you say would that be?
I think that there's in the beginning, the one of the big fears is just that simple fear of like, is this going to work? Am I going to what if I don't make this happen? That kind of stuff. But that'll
Hmm.
stop you in your tracks really early, so you kind of have to throw that to the side and say, well, I got to try it. I know for myself, one of my big fears, which, has, sometimes our biggest fears turn into our biggest superpowers, but one of my biggest fears was
Sure.
that I was going to sort of choose the wrong path. So when I started hearing the message of you got to niche down, everybody's got to niche down, this was still when I was doing a lot of photography. And so I for myself, I somehow thought that if I could show a wide range of work, that I would have a better shot at getting more work because I felt like I was showing range. I mean, and this is like, very early internet days before everybody was talking about internet marketing, online marketing, niching down, messaging. Like this wasn't a regular conversation. I was just, a gal in my 20s schlepping a portfolio around with a very basic website, trying to show that I had a wide range of skills and that this was going to help me get work. And it didn't, because then people didn't really know what to come to me for. So then when I started like niching down, the fear was, what if I pick the wrong direction? And I don't even really know where that fear was coming from because it's certainly not logical. It was just I created this story in my head that I would potentially choose the wrong direction and end up not being happy with it or something, which is kind of silly because frankly, if somebody had just, said like pick one and you're going to be successful at it, I would have just, picked something sooner. So that fear kind of still held me back for a little bit, but once I was like, you know what, I'm not going to know, I'm just going to try something. Let me just experiment with this. And then I actually started getting traction because then people started to know me for the particular type of work that I was doing. And I was like, oh, light bulb moment. Okay, I get it. I get why everybody is saying that now. But that was an early fear, is that I was gonna pigeonhole myself and narrow it down too much. And that is not at all what happens.
I think that is one of the most common fears that people have, and have so much resistance
Hmm.
to niche down.
Hmm.
And I did at the big, well, I didn't know any better when I had my virtual assistant business. It was, well, I want to help business owner, small business owner, entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
but that was so wide. It was such a big net. So yeah, I struggled with that. Then I started niching down. I wanted to work. I work with women who are in the healthcare, and so like wellness and health and wellness. And then I once I did that, then I started to see the results. And the same happened with business coaching. When I once I made the transition, it was a bit the net was a bit wider, and then I kept closing down. And once where I am now is when where I am most comfortable. But it's that we
Hmm.
for some reason most people, and it comes from fear. They we
Hmm.
put a resistance. We're afraid that, well, but what about if it doesn't work and all of that. But yes,
Well, and it's funny
it's
too because when you do like narrow it down, I think that the fear is that we're going to put ourselves in a little box, but what happens is we then get really clear on what we're doing and how we can help, and then that message becomes appealing to even like more people. So, I mean,
Yes.
I get really specific about what I do and how I can help people, but it resonates with more than just that one, person that I have in my mind. It just makes the whole messaging clearer, and then more people are attracted to any particular specific thing you say because now they can actually see themselves in it.
Yes, I have, that's been also my experience. The more I enjoy it, even more, because then I get more inspired is
Mhm.
to write, and because it comes natural, because then you are more clear, like you were saying, your message is so narrow, so direct to the person
Mhm.
that it needs to hear that.
Mhm.
So now let's talk about a little bit of marketing. I'm curious about your ecosystem approach to
Mhm.
marketing.
Mhm.
So you mentioned that marketing is an ecosystem. Can you break that down for us a bit?
Sure. Yeah, so when I talk about the whole marketing ecosystem, it comes down to things like this. I'll give you an example. There's always advice about what business owners could and should be doing. And there's all these different platforms, and there's SEO, and then there's ads, and there's email marketing, and there's social media. And what happens a lot of times, especially with new businesses, because when you're first building a brand and it's the first time doing it, you just don't know what you don't know. And so
Mhm.
people will kind of get started and they start working on their social media over here, and they start working on their email marketing here, and they run some ads, and then they've got their website, but it's all kind of disjointed rather than being connected, where one thing is taking, a customer through some sort of a journey. So for example, somebody might say, oh, my website isn't converting, or not enough people are seeing my website. And so they work with an SEO expert, and the SEO expert, helps them optimize their website so they're getting all of this traffic, but then all this traffic is going to their website. And if they don't have a way to capture those people and get them into their email list, for example, then the
Mhm.
ecosystem falls apart immediately, because getting a bunch of traffic to your website is meaningless if you don't have a way to continue relating with them, because 94% of people are not ready to make a purchase from you the first time they visit your website. So you could be putting all this money even into ads, Google or social or wherever. And if you're driving all these people to your website and you don't have a way to bring them into your ecosystem, meaning to follow up with them, to engage with them, like an email list is the gold standard, of course, like that's where we really want to get people, but maybe a social media post can try to get them there, but it also can expose them to other content. This is where you can repurpose content. So basically, every marketing channel, you want it to be sticky and kind of point to each other. Now, once you get somebody on your email list, then you've already like got them in the world with you, and that's going to be one of the best places to communicate with them. But the ecosystem is like, treating everything as one big marketing whole rather than separate channels.
It makes sense. It makes sense. I think you have given a great example when it comes to the website. You could have tons of people going onto your website, but unless you grab their emails, or something that you can retain, and then you can start nurturing them,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just wasting. Well, that's
Yeah,
websites are a great real estate, but if you're not
mm-hmm.
making that work, then it's money down the drain.
Totally. I
An
mean, and
effort.
people, yeah, well,
Mhm.
it's a lot of work that goes into it, and it's a lot of
Yeah.
work, to put into all of those pieces. It takes it takes energy to do all of those things. So if they're not connected, or from a branding perspective, if your message is different on any of those, or if it looks different on any of those, that's going to be confusing for people. And so, I mean, and I see this happen a lot. I work with people who, they're just kind of figuring out how to do this, where a lot of times people will come to me and specifically say something like, well, we need a social media strategy. And I'm like, okay, but it's part of, it is one component of the whole marketing strategy. The social media strategy shouldn't be living all by itself over here, not connected to the rest of it. So it's like that social strategy is how does that, connect it to all of the other pieces, and does it look and sound the same? Are you talking about the same things over here as you are over here as over here? So and actually the good news about that too is that it kind of sounds like a really big idea in the beginning, but when you kind of see how it all links together, you realize it's actually a much easier way to work. Because I think a lot of times people think like, how am I going to come up with what I do on social media versus what I do, on the blog versus what I do on a YouTube channel or whatever. I'm like, it really shouldn't be that different. I mean, the delivery is different. You might need a video over here, and you might need to write a caption over here, and you might need to, write something more in depth over here, but those should all really be talking about the same core things always. So it actually becomes easier when you make it work as
Yes.
one big thing instead of thinking about it as like, seven different things that you're doing.
And that's again, that's something entrepreneurs, or I will say solo entrepreneur, made that mistake. They think that it has to be different everywhere they are, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't has to be. The message should be the same one.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how you adapt the message to that specific platform. Perhaps that's
Mm-hmm.
how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
But your message
Mm-hmm.
should be the same because you are talking about one thing,
Yeah.
and so yeah. It, but if you're gonna say something on this channel and then something else on the other channel, all you are doing is, well, more work and it's confusing also for the
Mm-hmm.
audience.
Yeah, and then
So
confused people don't know what to do
bye.
with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't.
They
They're like, I'm out of here.
absolutely.
It's
So
true.
it is I mean, I'll go buy something if I'm not sure, if the message wasn't right, I'm not clear on it, I walk away.
Mm-hmm.
It not only online, but even if you go to a store and you get a salesperson that is not um don't don't have expertise on what it is that you're looking for, you're not going to buy from that person.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
So
I'm with
yeah.
you.
So a lot of women I speak with, they feel like they're supposed to do, supposed to pick one thing and stick with it. What will you say to them?
About picking just one thing and sticking with it. I think, the way that we just talked about, even like niching down and things like that, I think at a certain point, like in the beginning, especially, I think it is really smart to pick one thing to focus on and make one thing work before you start adding other things on. Um, I find that a lot of times I'll work with people who they're really motivated and have a lot of ideas. And so they want to have a lot of different offers, for example. But then it's a little confusing for, the people who say come to their website to kind of figure out, well, which is the thing that I should be doing. And if it's not clear, they don't know, or it's a very similar type of offer, but at different levels. So I think picking that one thing is a great idea. Pick one thing. See if you can make that one thing work. I think what's hard to see in the beginning is that picking that one thing doesn't set anything in stone. You will constantly be evolving and iterating on that, even that one thing. You can have a really strong, successful, profitable business offering one thing. I mean, you can, and you can build on it from there in any way that you want. But it goes back to that fear that we were talking about before of, people think they're going to get stuck in one thing. It's not like choosing to go to medical school and deciding that you don't want to be a doctor. Like, I understand when people put a lot of they have a lot of sunk costs into something. They're like, they've spent a lot of money, they've spent a lot of time doing something, and then they feel like, well, now I can't give it up. The beautiful thing about entrepreneurship and having a business is you can pivot that anytime you want. And, sometimes there can be, some challenges in that, but for the most part, you can take off in one direction and kind of, change it a little bit as you go so that it continues to evolve and feel better for you. You're going to get better and better at what you're doing. You're going to get more and more clear about what works for you. And, that is really something that is difficult to see in the beginning, though, about that picking that one thing. But yes, I do think picking one thing and just going with that is a really good, strong start.
Yes. Sometimes you may go to a website of a entrepreneur, whether it's offering, it's a service-based business, whether it's like graphic design or coaching,
Mhm.
and so the services can look like a supermarket, like a grocery
Yeah.
store, because there is so much to pick on. And then, like
Yeah.
you were saying, it's like, well, which one do I choose? Which one will be
Mhm.
best for me? And
Mhm.
so, well, I don't know, but I like this, but I don't like that, this on this one, not on the other package, whatever. So it just get too
Mhm.
confusing.
Mhm.
And the best thing is, like you were saying, just stick to one thing, because you can always, the program that you start today or the service package that you design today and it's giving you result, you're not going to stay there for the whole of your life.
Mhm.
It's going to evolve as you evolve with your clients, and you see, and needs changes and
Mhm.
trend changes, all of that. Then it's going to evolve with you. It's not, like you say, it's not written in stone. So
Mhm.
people need to keep that in mind. A lot of people want to start with group coaching, and it may work for some people right off the gates. But to me, I think it's best to start, when it comes to coaching, the one-on-one, because that's when you're gonna get the most experience knowing a lot of different people. And so
Mhm.
by working one-on-one, specifically with one person at the time, it will be like a bank. It will become a bank of different experiences that you see, and the different needs. And then you could say, well, let me go and do a group coaching, and then you can
Mhm.
have a whole pool of different people, because then you will have the experience also to manage the different personalities and idea, and the needs and wants of those people
I
in the
totally
group.
agree. I mean, the whole path of getting to the one-on-one coaching, for me, even I've done groups, I've done online courses, and what would end up happening always is that there isn't, you can talk about frameworks and I have some kind of, guidelines, but it is different for every single person. And I can so much better help somebody one on one because sure, I could create like a self-guided course around some of the things that I work on all the time with people, but they're always going to have specific and individual questions. And so being able to work one on one, I mean, you just get so much more out of it. And I love it because I can better give attention to somebody and really work through a specific and nuanced kind of a problem that they might be having, or not problem, but, challenge. Of the mix of clients that I have right now, as as specific as I can be with my messaging, like I said, I still have like a really wide range of types of businesses at different levels that I'm working with, and I can't imagine having all of those people in one group. I mean,
Yeah,
there's something.
it's too diverse.
Yeah, it's like they all really do need the one-on-one help. And sure, there's something that I do like about a group dynamic, which I will probably do again at some point, is that, then you have the community of entrepreneurs who are also learning from each other and have the community with each other as well. And you learn from other
Hmm.
people's businesses, and that's always really cool. But especially the stage that I'm working with people, they're not really they're not looking for like what other people are doing. They're like eyes on their own paper. They need help with, launching a brand or a business, or figuring out like how to really make their marketing systems work, or how to give creative direction to the designers, and all the things. Like it's very specific to one-on-one. So I love the one-on-one stuff.
Well, I have a couple of questions that I wouldn't want you miss asking you, and is one of them is I love how you talk about capacity-based strategy. Can you share what
Mhm.
looks like in practice for a woman who only has like a few hours a week to
Yeah,
work?
yeah, for sure. So if somebody only has a few hours a week, I always first go start with what somebody's goals are and, kind of do a little bit of reverse engineering about the different ways that they might get there and how they can do that in a few hours a week. So, I definitely have people who are really stretched with their time. And so if they're really stretched with their time, they can't be in too many places at once. So for those people who only have a little bit of time, I will recommend that they choose a platform, whether it is, one social media platform, and everybody, works a little bit different, but let's say Instagram is their thing. And having them, do some promotions, but always pointing back to growing the email list, because if you don't have time for doing a whole lot of marketing, you've got to do some kind of promotion that will steer people hopefully toward other content that they can engage with, where they're going to get on your email list, so that you can send at least a weekly email to be promoting, whether you have a product or a service or something like that. Like those would be sort of the main things. Like everything outside of that, people will say like, "Oh, like do I need to start a podcast?" And I mean, you can, and I love it. I'm a huge fan of podcasts. Here we are. I think it's a
Yes.
really wonderful tool, but if you only have a few hours a week and you're not building your email list and you're like trying to prioritize things, I would say that like the number one priority is building that email list so that you can connect directly with people to promote whatever it is that you have, because that's always going to be the most direct line. And then you can kind of build on it from there. But it has more to do, like for the capacity, I always say like go wherever you're gonna go as far as whatever your social media, or if you want to make YouTube or something like that, but do what you can do consistently. So people also talk about consistency all the time, and
Yeah.
it's really easy to be like, well, okay, but you have to do like 3 posts a week and all this kind of stuff. If you can't do 3 posts a week every single week, don't, because it's worse to go and do that for a few weeks and then to totally vanish and then come. And I've
Yeah.
been guilty of all of these things too, like
We all
I'm
we
I'm
all
not
have been.
I'm not beyond it, but I'm telling you, I can see like I know every single time. And whenever I disappear from social media, I'm making a conscious choice to say this is not a priority for me right now, because I've got other things going on. So but like at the base of like of marketing and brand stuff, if you even only have one page on your website, like don't worry about writing blogs every week and doing YouTube. Just wherever you're going to be getting in front of new people, being able to promote something to get on your email list, and communicating with the people on your email list. Those would be like the top things.
Yeah, I have to agree with you when it comes to the email list because that's where the goal is. That
Mm-hmm.
always people talk about it because sometimes what I notice is people put so much time and faith into a social media platform, but the truth of it is you don't own that, but you do own
Mm-hmm.
your email list,
Mm-hmm.
and there's in having an email list, that's where you have the most opportunity of nurturing those people, creating a deeper connection um, with them. And obviously, when it comes to sales, it's also because you have built this community by email, it's much easier to show people what you have to offer, and they will be more likely to purchase from your services
Mm-hmm.
from you.
It's true.
So yeah, people forget about the email list, but that's one thing that you own, and that's where the goal is, and it's always growing, and you can, well, there is a lot of things that comes with having an email list and funnel
Yeah.
something. But at the beginning,
Yeah.
just keep it simple.
Yeah,
I'm all
totally.
about keeping things very simple.
Me too.
So now, yeah, I mean, time is in essence, and but moving now into visual branding and photo strategy. Um, so many women, I think we talked about this earlier, about avoid being visible
Mhm.
uh, on photos or video. So what would be, what's your take on that?
Well, I think it depends on what kind of business you have, number one. I mean, I think that if you're going to have any kind of a personal brand and work one-on-one with people, so say anybody in the coaching space, service industry, something where you're going to be working with people, people want to see you. They want to see your face. It doesn't have to be all you, but they want to see you. I know that I wouldn't hire somebody for one-on-one work like if I had never even seen an image of them, and it has nothing to do with the way that you look. It is all about energy. It's just you want to see like the way that somebody radiates and holds themselves, and usually like I don't know. I mean, there's just something about when somebody has no images of themselves anywhere in their business, there's just a disconnection. I think especially in the age of everything with AI, and I'm not against using AI tools or anything like that, but in the age of all of that, it's more and more important to have those human connections and to have a connection with somebody online in some way means that you have to be a little bit visible. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to become like influencer status, have to go live
Hmm.
every single
Yeah.
day, or things like that. But I do think that you go to have to show up and be the face of your brand a little bit. I mean, where I would say if somebody doesn't need to do that, maybe you have a product business where you can get away with having like one picture on the about page as the founder, because it's really not as much about you, and your
Hmm.
imagery is about lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I hate, sorry to the introverts, but it is something that you have to show up and show your face and have some images of yourself if you want to connect with people.
Yes, that's very true. And what advice would you give someone who's planning a DIY photo shoot for
Oh,
their
this,
brand?
yeah, this one is great. So I actually have an entire episode of the Vignette Effect, my podcast, that's all about preparing for a successful brand shoot. And this is true whether you're working with a photographer or DIYing. But basically, some of my main tips, like the one big tip is to make a plan. And it sounds kind of obvious, but I think all too many people, especially when when they're doing a DIY, they just kind of take a bunch of photos without a plan, and then you may or may not have what you need. And then something similar happens even if you're working with a photographer. Not every photographer is shooting strategically, especially like they don't know where you're going to use all of those. So part of the job going into a photo shoot, working with someone or doing it for yourself is, the first thing would be to make a list of everywhere that you're going to be using these images. And then you can, start to make notes of like, okay, well, I know that I need images for, web headers of website pages. So that means you need to have some horizontal that are, shot wide instead of vertically. That's going to be a lot easier. So as you start listing out where you're going to use the images, it really helps you to know exactly what kind of picture are you going to take. And if you have, something in particular that you're promoting next month on social media, then you want to write that down and know that, okay, well, we've got to do, we're going to do a post about this new product, so we need images of the product, we need somebody using the product, we need a close-up of the product. The more detailed of a shot list that you can get, I mean, and there's always something, there's always more that you need or always more that you can use, but by simply going through and making a really thorough list of what you need the pictures for and any details about what that picture needs to be, or, what direction it needs to be shot, or if there needs to be negative space so that there can be some text on it or something. That one thing right there is going to be so super helpful when you go to shoot, because when you get into like a brand photo shoot, it's really fun, and it can be, like a relaxed sort of environment, but people get kind of focused and you kind of go off on a tangent, and you're shooting something here and then you're chasing the light there and then you have an idea here, and it kind of gets all over the place. If you don't have like a list to guide you by, it's really easy to get off track.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to have a plan, to have a guide, so
Mhm.
you don't get off track
Mhm.
on that one.
Mhm.
Raquel, it's been really good talking to you. I think the point, the things that you mentioned about marketing, especially that ecosystem, is so on point and so necessary, um, for, for an entrepreneur to take on, for, to have a successful presence in the different platforms, that everything
Mm.
syncs together.
I'm glad you
Where
like
can
that. I love that.
Yes. So where do people can reach out if they
Yeah.
like to know more about you and your services?
Yeah, so my website, which is vignettebrandstudio.com, and there's information about my coaching there and links for to book a discovery call. And Instagram, I am Raquel.Furman. We can connect there as well. And those are like the two places that I'm the most reachable, is through website and Instagram. And then of course I have The Vignette Effect is my podcast. And so you can always find me over there and listen and find other links for things in all those show notes too when I have extras.
That's great. So thank you so much for
Thank
being part of
you.
this podcast, the man.
Oh, thank you
And
so much for having me. I really had a great time having this conversation with you. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in to my entrepreneurial journey with Yaritza Báez. I hope today's episode gave you insights and inspiration to fuel your business journey. Remember, whether you are just starting out or looking to grow, you are not alone on this path. We are building our dreams together, one step at a time. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you feel inspired, leave a review or share this episode with a friend who could use a little extra motivation. Until next time, keep pushing forward and bringing your unique vision to life.